Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody all over the world. We have people tuning in from all over, including these two gentlemen, Mr. Mando and CTO. Good morning, fellas. How's it going?
It's going great, man. It's great to have the audio so clean now. We've made some changes. No, 50% of the comments were always someone was too loud, someone was too low. Hopefully that's now all fixed. But I'm looking forward to today. Big week.
Awesome. Huge
Me too.
week.
Fantastic. It's incredible times, actually. I will talk about it.
And what's really crazy, it's week 3 of 69K. What's up with that? Mando, is that bizarre or what? Like literally on the nose every single Monday. It pumps, it goes up from 68.5 to 69K. It's as if it's mocking us.
Yeah, I think this time last week we were around 66K, right? And we said it would go up to 71. We did touch that level and then we kind of retraced. I have to say the retracement has surprised me. Like we're going to go into some of the headlines this week, but they have been some of the most bullish headlines possible for crypto since I've been involved in crypto. And I've been surprised we haven't gone higher, but I'm sure we're going to break through that all-time high imminently.
Exactly. CTO, what do you make of the past week and the 69K action?
Yes, I'm sharing my screen here, actually. So if I can point out one thing, because we did deliver some value last Monday. I said that the resistance level is 71,400, and we hit actually 71,432. We're not always going to be that lucky, but when it works, we have to enjoy it a little bit. So that was the resistance level that we had from over here. So I think that it is a natural resistance. Then we have something positive here. The previous resistance level down here at 67,000 something, 67,200. We got quite strong reaction there. Now that has turned into support. You can see these 2 long wicks down here. There we immediately reverted back up, and now we're in this area between the resistance at 71,400 and the support here. The trend is up according to the proxies that I have. So I also think, just like Mando, we're having some incredible events developing, actually, and I think this should resolve on the upside. That's my take as well. I think you're muted, James.
Thank you. We are all streaming on our own channels, everybody. So remember, if you could be on X, on Mando's channel, CTO's channel. So just remember that. Let's jump into some of the crazy stuff that's actually happening right now. And we'll go through the news real fast and we'll dwell on some items. But, the theme for today is acceptance. We had a crazy week last week where, in terms of legal approvals, it was absolutely shocking and mind-blowing exactly what went on. We had the FIT21 bill, we had the ETH ETF approved, we had a CBDC anti-spy thing on citizens being kind of approved in the House. We have the UK ETNs are being launched. We have Biden and Trump accepting crypto donations. There's the ETH ticker now up for BlackRock for the ETH ETF. ETHA is the ticker. And UK ETNs are following both Hong Kong and the United States for Bitcoin and Ethereum ETNs, which are for accredited investors only. Mando, what do you think of the UK ETNs? Will that be a bit of a nothing burger, kind of like Hong Kong, or could that be huge?
It depends. Like the UK is a powerhouse in financial services, but the ETF market is largely a US market. The UK is big for hedge funds and certain asset managers and some banks, but it's not like the biggest market for ETFs. So I think it'll be relatively big. I think it's meant to be launching tomorrow. I think the first one is meant to launch from Wisdom Tree. So
Yep.
We'll get much stronger view on that kind of imminently. The biggest one for me was the ETH ETF. And just the general sentiment around it. Like we've been doing this show, and for the last couple of weeks, it was Trump and the Republicans are going to be very pro crypto. Democrats are not. Then you saw a softening of the approach kind of a week ago, and then it's full capitulation. It's become a political issue now, which I don't think anyone would have said a few months ago maybe at the start of this year even, that crypto would be a political issue this cycle. I think people had largely thought that it not gone away, but just wasn't at the forefront of what people cared about. And suddenly now it is. Trump's been making several statements over the last week about it. You've seen Biden, who said he would veto this Fit 21 bill, obviously hasn't. And then seemingly Gensler at the SEC got basically bypassed on this ETH ETF, which has been a huge issue for crypto. You know, the acceptance of certain things being a commodity versus a security. That now is the pathway for a bunch of different things to be potentially listed as ETFs. It has been a really monumental week for crypto, in my opinion. But yeah, I would say the biggest one for me is that ETH ETF.
Okay, Mando, as a market man like me, when 4 things happen all at the same time that are unexpected, they can't be priced in. Are they priced in?
I personally, I did not see that coming. And I don't think many people did. You know, we were on this show last week saying ETH needed a narrative. Suddenly it got a narrative and it got back in ETF, right? Like that was almost instantly got back its narrative. And that the price action before that tells you that people did not see this coming. People did not see this coming. This has been a real quick spiraling of political sentiment towards crypto. And it all started with just a speech by Trump maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then he's actually upped his rhetoric around it. You know, over the weekend, he's clearly seeing this is getting him support, went out and said he would pardon the Silk Road founder, which is kind of a case within crypto, which garners a lot of support. And again, pointed out that, you know, I'm going to accept all these different donations. We're going to make sure crypto does not move overseas. You know, we do not want to be second best on this, I think was his exact words. You know, he's really pushing this as a topic for this election. I'd be very unsurprised if you heard about it in the debates, you know, and that's not something I would have expected at all a few months ago. So this is great.
Who thought that the main presidential candidate will say, I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin? I mean, that's something like some odd guys, 3 guys on YouTube here might say, but I did not see that it would be this explicit and that high up on the agenda.
In fact, CTO, what you said there is incredibly profound, because Elizabeth Warren has created her whole foundation for her running in politics as an anti-crypto army. That's her whole thing. She even had posters posted all over the place about that. That's not going to age well. And again, we always joke about kind of crypto and Bitcoin being the cockroach you can't kill. You can't put it back in the toothpaste tube or whatever. And now it's really happening. So it's embrace or die, as we've always said. It's quite profound. In fact, this is one piece that, you know, the ETH stuff, a lot of people are talking about targets. Question for you guys, CTO, you first. How high could this puppy go? This was a Colin Wu poll on Twitter. The price of ETH before the ETF is launched. And the question is, how high? A lot of people believe, a lot of hope you maybe for 10,000. I think 5,000 would be quite generous. CTO, what do you see for ETH, and where do you see it going to? Maybe pull up a chart.
Yes, I want to say one thing first, because we talked about it, like Mando and you said also, like last Monday, just 1 week ago, there was no one who had any information about this. I went back and looked in the chart. Like, could you see before? Because if people knew that this were coming a day before, a week before, or something, you would see it in the chart. If this leaked out, there was nothing. There was no one who had information about this. So clearly they hadn't decided yet. They really flipped on a dime and suddenly decided that, okay, we will approve this Ethereum ETF instead of
we did see that 20% move exactly straight up in hours. So somebody knew it was coming. So that always leaks.
But it wasn't. There was nothing like the day before, for example, or even. Let's go and look at like the 4-hour chart or something. Perhaps someone had some information here, but if you look at the volume, There is nothing here until this candle, which was the actual tweet from Eric Balchunas and the others just a few minutes before. So here there was practically nothing. And then came the announcement here. And we talked about it actually last time, because I felt like what would change my mind? Because at this point, it couldn't possibly look any worse. The chart couldn't look any worse. And then what would change the mind? What would change the situation? Well, that would be, and we said it on the channel, that would be if there's a political decision that they approve the Ethereum ETF. And then I did not think that would happen at that point. But then later, same day in the evening, they actually did that. And I think it's a good tutorial to kind of keep strong opinions, but loosely held. If situation changes, you have to be able to change your mind, because this one did shoot up quite a lot. But if we zoom out and look at the question you asked, how high can it go and so on, it doesn't really matter if you caught 10% of that move or not. It doesn't really matter. What matters here is if this will follow through or not. And then the situation is as follows. This becomes much easier to sort out on the ETH to BTC chart, because Bitcoin will probably go up. At least that's my main thesis. I think things are looking great for crypto. Bitcoin is the powerhouse. Probably Bitcoin will go up. And if Bitcoin goes up, all the altcoins probably go up in US dollar terms as well. But that's not enough. It's not enough to be up in US dollar if everything goes up. We have to see, will it perform better than Bitcoin or worse than Bitcoin? If it will perform worse than Bitcoin, why hold an altcoin which has high risk? So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the ETH to BTC chart, and then the situation is much clearer. We're in this fairly tight range. If it breaks out on the upside, this orange line here is approximately where Ethereum would become as big as Bitcoin in market cap. And that's maybe an optimistic high case if the current world picture in crypto remains. So that's about at 0.16. And then we can all say, how high do we think that Bitcoin will go? And we can kind of multiply. So this is market cap. It's not price. So I think, 10K is perhaps possible. And then this could go up perhaps 2 to 3 times ETH to BTC if ETH is really successful in this run. And then Bitcoin could go up another 2-3x. So that's a very optimistic case. But I think it's much easier to follow if this actually pushes through, if this leads to a massive inflow even more than into the Bitcoin ETFs. It will be easier to track that here on the ETH to BTC chart. So that's my high case. Here's the resistance level at 0.088. And a high case would be up here. If this doesn't follow through, it falls back down again. Perhaps they start approving a bunch of ETFs. Perhaps they approve 10 more ETFs. Okay, then there is that unique advantage that Ethereum might have at this point is then gone. So I think that's what we should monitor. I think we need to monitor what happens here. And the trend hasn't really turned up yet in ETH to BTC despite this announcement, which is kind of surprising. It seemed like a very big move, but actually it's not so big. This move from here to current level is like 20%. And if you've been into altcoins, you know that 20% move in an altcoin, that isn't actually much.
Yep. And we saw that the ETH BTC chart has been suffering for 18 months. And even though it had that huge spike, it still is way underwater compared to other assets. Let's go back to Bitcoin for a second. This news broke. Mando, I don't know if you heard about this. The whole internet's buzzing, but Bitcoin balances for whales have exploded. A huge amount of buying over the last 24 hours, under 69K. The question is this just a recategorization of maybe some of the ETF wallets? Because it's the largest on record, and it seems very peculiar. This set of on-chain analytics, and CryptoQuant sometimes shares things that aren't fully thought through. Did you notice this one at all?
I saw it over the weekend. that the whales have been increasing. But yeah, it's difficult to take this data in isolation. That does seem very, very high for a very limited price action. So I don't really know what to make of that. That could just be a something in the data, I would guess. But yeah, I think this is I do think Bitcoin's looking incredibly healthy here. Like when you showed me that chart, it just touched the all-time high again and then dropped back down. ETH, I think, has a new narrative. Like we spoke about this last week, which is that it didn't have a narrative. I kind of like, we can talk about how high it would go, but I just think it's just great for crypto. I just think it's really, really good for crypto when the top three assets all have a narrative. Like Solana, you have a lot of the fast degenning going on. It's obviously won over a ton of different users. Bitcoin has a digital gold narrative, and we've said that ETH has kind of been lost in between both of those and not really exceeding it either. Now, I think it can really build a narrative around institutional adoption. BlackRock, all these different people are starting to securitize potentially on ETH, and maybe potentially some of the coins even that on ETH being classed as commodities too. I think a lot of people look through for some of the ETH meme coins being classed even as commodities, but there'll be a range of different coins that they can even look at there. So I think ETH has got a narrative back, which it hasn't had for a long, long time. And I like what you said. It's strong beliefs loosely held. Like as soon as I heard that, I didn't actually buy ETH. I bought Pepe, but I knew it had a narrative back. That changes the game. Like people have to respect how big a week this was for crypto in general. Like this has really shifted the US to being pro crypto, and it hasn't been pro crypto since the dawn of crypto. So
exactly, and it's not priced in, we believe. Which
I don't think it's priced in at all. I think we're going way up there.
This is one thing I've noticed. I watch a lot of the option action, being an options person myself. The open interest on CME, and I don't know if you track this as well, CTO, but it has exploded. The hedge funds always go short that Bitcoin at the wrong time. Considering all of the stuff that's happened last week, it's not priced in. We're going higher, and these hedge funds go short. Anybody have an answer for that? Are they still oblivious to what's happening?
I don't know in this specific case, but one thing that I realized is that the professional traditional investors are not particularly good at investing in technology. That's just a fact. So tech is really an area where we kind of have a chance as amateurs, where at least we don't have a big like investment bank with 200 people sitting doing work. But even with those 200 people, they have completely missed the valuation of almost all the big tech companies, even the stocks and the crypto and everything. It's very difficult to analyze that with traditional means. So I don't know what they're doing. And frankly, I don't really care because they haven't been particularly good.
Yeah, a quick shout out as well, just before I forget, happy Memorial Day and remembering the fallen heroes in the United States. That's what this holiday is for. It's also a holiday in the United Kingdom. So shout out to everybody over there as well. Yeah, this is crazy. Mando, have you seen the fact that hedge funds get it wrong for Bitcoin quite often?
Yeah, they do. I think the issue about this figure is that it's often confused with the basis trade, which is incredibly popular for hedge funds in crypto. And what that is, they buy the spot Bitcoin, and then they'll short the equivalent of the same amount of Bitcoin. And you basically earn the funding rate on Bitcoin that way. So you earn something like 7% for ETH. It's been higher, but it can be up to 30-40% in certain markets. It was that earlier this year, and even close to 100% at times. So that's been the most popular trade. So it's difficult with open interest because all that can show is just an increase in basis trades. And for example, Millennium, I mean, I know someone who works in Millennium. I know that trade was a basis trade that they put on when they said that they bought that amount of Bitcoin. I think there was a report out on the weekend that over 50% of the top hedge funds in the US own Bitcoin at this stage. And I think the vast majority of them will be playing that basis trade because for them, they just need to make low single digits of returns. Yeah.
Family man, it's a holiday. Congratulations. There's another interesting thing that's happening right now. And CTO, we now have $150 billion sitting in stable coins, earning whatever, if they're even earning anything, depending on how you play it. And Bitcoin so far year to date is up 62%. Actually, it's up about 64% now because it just shot up another $670. It just spiked. Literally, you can't make this up. Every time we do DCA, Bitcoin spikes. And we are nothing to do with it, guys. We're not pumping it. But what would you say to the people sitting on $150 billion in stablecoins? And what will happen to those things?
Yeah, I wonder the same. I mean, it's not that much if looking at the whole picture in front of us. So, okay, so it's 100 billion in stable coins, but market cap in Ethereum plus Bitcoin is like 1.7 billion. And you add a couple of more, it's 2 billion. So it's, yeah, it's what is it? It's like 5-6% perhaps.
Mhm.
I mean, it makes sense. Maybe it's people who have traded something. They've closed the trade, waiting for the next thing. But of course, if we break out here, I think a lot of people will start feeling the stress and they will jump back in. And it could also be on-ramp, people joining the space. They start with stable coin and they haven't really found a good entry yet, perhaps. But I'm not sure, actually. What do you guys think?
I just think we're kind of missing the point slightly. Like, I just feel like this week was just so massive. We should just be getting long everything. Like, you can be long Bitcoin, Solana. I think ETH maybe is the best performer for the next month or two on the back of this ETF. But this is such momentous news, and the price hasn't moved yet. Like,
Yeah,
the price hasn't moved yet.
I actually, when I saw that Trump video, today, I thought it was a deep fake.
Yeah,
I thought, no way. He's saying like, I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away and stuff like that's like something that someone on crypto Twitter or crypto X would say. And I thought someone made a video about it. I thought it was quite funny. It turned out he actually said it was actually real. And I mean, who would have imagined?
Well, I've got a theory on that. I'd like to your point of views on this too. Trump is very good at selling stuff. He's also very good at listening to smart people and, anchoring on key things. Like last time around, it was build that wall or something. This time around, it's protecting your freedom, protecting your right to own and custody Bitcoin, crypto. I think he has an advisor. His name is Vivek. I think Vivek is orchestrating his strategy. I see you smile, Mando. Do you think I'm onto something? Because it's all too good. He's really going for the jugular of the other party by these, attracting these 50 million voters in the US. Do you think somebody is advising him, or is it coming straight from his head?
Yeah, I think Trump often surrounds himself with smart people. They often don't stick around for too long, but he often does get strong views. And Vivek, I liked. Yeah, he was also very pro crypto. In fact, most of the Republican candidates were very pro crypto, if I'm honest. So maybe he's advising this, so it would be a populist move. It also, it flanks the Democrats to a certain extent. Like they couldn't. It's forcing the issue upon Biden right now, who is also kind of softening his approach. So maybe that's what he's doing. But like he clearly saw this as a populist move, which the Democrats would have to scramble to try and fix. Now they have. At least they made some pretty significant strides, at least in the last 2 weeks. But it'll be interesting to see how this develops because he's clearly going to keep pushing it. Like he's brought up this every single day, basically. But again, this is so wild. But I just was not expecting that at all. So he clearly sees this as a weak point which he can exploit. So I expect to see a lot more of that. It's just politics, right? Like he's seen a populist move here which he can get behind, which is difficult for other people to get behind. But yeah, I think it does ramp up. I think I expect to see this as an issue. Like I said in the debates, I think it will be very, very easy for it to be brought up.
And I think also, like exactly like you said, that it's removing the maybe biggest problem we had in the whole industry. The biggest problem was a very aggressive stance from some of the agencies in the US, basically trying to shut things down as much as they could everywhere. And if that now changes, the biggest problem is gone. And Yeah, I start thinking that maybe this almost start running too fast now. It's like I'm starting to worry that it's not part is happening now. I think if someone is just starting to join and you kind of thinking you will sit around and wait, this might accelerate, and it might accelerate fast. I think so too.
Yeah.
This is massive.
Let's talk about this. Have you guys looked? We'll wrap up the Bitcoin talk and we'll move on to the more exciting stuff in a minute. But a lot of people are talking about a Bitcoin power law in a big way, and I believe much more in Metcalfe's law. But I think power law is more of a crude version, and anything that scales exponentially can be linearized with a log scale. But CTO, have you looked into power law at all? And are you a believer? It's like it seems to be the model of this bull run.
I'm not even sure what power law is, but I mean, exponential growth becomes a straight line on a log chart. That's what it is. That's what the log chart is, and that principle is extremely useful. It has held true for almost all the tech companies, the big tech companies. If you take the past 20 years or something, even if you take the past 100 years of S&P index, it becomes a straight line on the log chart. Mm-hmm. And Bitcoin is exhibiting the exact same behavior. It's just compressed in the time scale. So what takes 50 years in a stock takes 5 years in Bitcoin, and even faster in some of the altcoins. But the line of, or the type of chart is the same. And it is basically a straight line on the log chart, because that's what exponential growth is. And that is what we're seeing in Bitcoin. It's not a linear growth or any other type. It is exponential growth.
Exactly. There's no need to overthink it. Mando, have you done any studies into power law? And it has some very aggressive projections. $1 million Bitcoins incoming if it continues.
I mean, that seems like it could happen very easily to me. Obviously, the time frame is the thing here. I don't know if it will happen in the next 2 years, but I do think we're going up and to the right. These sort of graphs are great. Like if you do it for the US stock index, and you do a log chart as well, it's relatively flat and up and to the right, just like this. So I think they are useful for looking at very, very long contexts, but I don't think they're amazing at looking at short-term predictions. So I think you can predict over the next maybe 10 years that we're going up and to the right, but then it can be a little bit difficult. Like you see the non-log chart, right? It can be very, very different looking. So I think it's difficult for me to say we're going to 1 million Bitcoin anytime soon, but I do think we're going to 1 million Bitcoin. And I think log charts are very, very useful for looking at long-term trends.
Yeah, just to add what Mando said there, it's definitely been possible to maneuver around this little bit, because what looks like a tiny blip there on the orange line is actually an 85% retracement each time, and there's no need to ride that all the way.
Similarly, look at that log chart. A log chart from 2011 to 2015. Like that is wild.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, very, very life-changing indeed. Back to Bankless, who are kind of ETH maxis. They came out, or some member of the Bankless organization came out and spoke about, they said something very profound, to the words to the effect of, only the fastest, most secure, most convenient, most capable chains survive. This is Bankless. And any L2 can bastardize any L1, ergo Solana will eventually suffer from other L1 base layer and perhaps L2 competition. But that ignores kind of adoption. Architecturally, there's so many L2s right now, it's almost impossible to count them. And then you have all these alt L1s popping on the scene, modern, newer technology, so-called sol killers. Again, we have to revisit this because it's so important with the advent of the ETH ETF. The question is, what layer one happens next? And where do you see this whole space going? Because, I'm a big believer that winner takes most. You can't have 20 winners or even 5 winners. It's it's one major player and then a couple of niche players that focus on things. ETH may be the BlackRock tokenization layer, for example, in the future. It will not be the consumer chain. Mando, how do you frame all this up in your head? Where do you see the world going? It's a tough question, I know.
Yeah, no, I think you said it right, but there's also kind of a paradox in there. I do think Bitcoin, we know the narrative and it works. Solana, we know the narrative and it works, right? You're seeing it right now, the consumer adoption chain. ETH has now got a new narrative. We've got to see if it works, right? The new narrative is this is going to see massive institutional adoption because people are going to be like, it's smart contracts. I can securitize on this. If we do start to see massive RWAs start to move onto ETH, we've seen BlackRock say it, they're going to securitize everything. Franklin Templeton came out and said similar stuff. Fidelity's obviously been huge in this space for a long time. Let's see if it happens. But the narrative is there now. I think the actual ETF itself, I think it will be a slight disappointment, if I'm honest. I think it won't be as big as people expect it to be. You've also got Grayscale, which has got like 15 billion ETH or just shy of it, which it's got to sell. And we saw what happens with the Bitcoin ETF for that. So I think the ETH ETF in of itself will not be as bullish as the idea that you will now start to see more institutional adoption by Wall Street, by broader TradFi of potentially ETH, just because there's regulatory clarity, which there isn't on the vast majority of other L1s. Now that's the narrative. Let's see firstly if they actually come and do it before Solana gets maybe classified as a commodity too, or maybe some other things get classified as a commodity. It's a narrow window here for ETH really to grab that narrative, and I think it can pump. It can pump hard on the hope that happens, and maybe we do see a massive amount of delivery. Maybe we don't, but it's there. That being said, I feel very comfortable owning Solana because I know it's the consumer chain. I know it works well. It's not an L2. I feel that the security is strong. It's only getting stronger. It's only getting faster. I like all three right now, and I feel very, very secure owning them. I guess ETH is still a little bit of a show me on that narrative if it can get it back, which I think it will. I mean, we've seen at least some adoption so far. BlackRock have securitized hundreds of millions of treasuries on the on the blockchain so far. So maybe we'll see a ton of that now happen over the next 6 months. That's your bull case. That's your real bull case for ETH.
CTO, from a technology perspective, we've talked about modular versus monolithic for a long time. Could L2s become what Mando calls the consumer chain Solana? Do they have what it takes? How do you see all this shaking out?
I mean, we talked about it many times.
Yeah.
The L2s have, in the first iteration of the L2s, they had one big problem. I felt it immediately, and it's kind of too difficult for most people to kind of bridge, and you know, how do you even use it? And then came Base, which was maybe Ethereum's best bet, because then, okay, you don't need to bridge, you just use Coinbase, and then you withdraw straight to the Base chain, similarly like Binance did with Binance Smart Chain, which became quite successful in the previous cycle. So I felt, that could perhaps work, but is that decentralized? Is it, good enough? Not sure. So I also really liked the principle with Solana that it's kind of cheap, it's fast, it's simple, it's just one layer, you just build it faster and it works and becomes kind of less complicated. And I still like that. And I don't think it needs to be either or. I really like what Mando has said here, that each of them have a narrative now. And I'm also thinking, like, now they approved not only Ethereum, they approved the whole idea. They approved the whole idea that something which isn't Bitcoin, which had like the digital gold narrative, but something which actually is a smart contract platform, isn't an unregistered security, and everyone who meddle with it should ideally go to jail. No, they approved it. They approved the ETF. Then must come the question, why treat that one special? Why not approve the next one and the next one and the next one? And probably in the end, they will need to do that because they are very similar. You set the precedent when you approve the first. And I think this is very bullish for the whole industry. The whole industry won here. it's not only about Ethereum. And I'm sure that this kind of battle between the different L1s that will continue, but I think there's room for more than one. And yeah, I don't think this, and Solana hasn't dumped as a result of this news. It's not that the market thinks that, okay, Ethereum will win everything now. So all the other ones dump, like, I don't know, AVAX and NEAR and BSC and Solana and all of those are gone. No, that's not what we're seeing on the market at all, because I think most market participants reason in the same way, that this is actually positive for all the chains.
Exactly.
And
It's very big positive for the whole space as well.
yeah, and of course, my view on the simplicity of the layer one technologies, that hasn't changed.
Yeah. All right, we've got a big week ahead. Despite the markets in the U.S. being closed today, we have some macro data. Mando, I don't know if you're looking at any of these things. What's important, and I have no idea why there's 10 Fed speaker events this week at all. They keep saying the same thing. It's like they're trying to jawbone the economy into a terrible recession, that they're higher for longer. What's also kind of crazy is, I know I have it here somewhere, the let me see, this kind of slide. We have an ECB rate cut coming in June, and that's big. So we know the central banks were coordinated. All right, they did everything in lockstep. Bank of England, Bank of Japan, ECB, the Fed, all working at the same time. Now all of a sudden the ECB is cutting rates and their inflation is nowhere near the 2%. So what's going on here? Are they worried about something? And what will happen next? Mando?
Well, they're worried about something, in that they're basically, every government around the world is insolvent unless they print money. So the fact that they have high rates is kind of a disaster for them. ECB is not growing very quickly. Germany is only kind of starting to emerge after out of a very, very weak period of growth for it, and that basically powers all of Europe. They've said one cut. They've actually said there'd probably be multiple cuts. It's not a case of one cut. It's how many they do this year. People have said up to 3. It may be slightly less, but yeah, the ECB is cutting. I expect, everywhere apart from the US is heading towards cutting. The UK is. We've already spoken about what's going on in Asia a few weeks ago with like Japan. Like it is a real difficulty that inflation has stayed stubbornly high in the US, and that they are keeping rates very high. It's just meant a strong dollar, and the idea that other countries can't really cut their rates. So yeah, the ECB is blinking first, but it makes sense. It's slow growth, aging, like it just can't deal with high interest rate costs. So I think we'll definitely see that. In terms of the big data this week, Friday is probably the biggest, and that's the core PCE inflation. That's the preferred inflation metric from the Fed. That's the one they always look at. If you start to see a softening of inflation there, then expect to see, again, a big rally. The GDP data will be interesting, like to see we're not going for a stagflation. And I guess consumer confidence, it was a big miss in the last consumer confidence figure, so that has slightly more importance. But the big one there is on Friday. But yeah, expect to see around the world, everyone's starting to cut rates. It's just again a question of when for the US as well. Like it's been slightly pushed out, it looks like. But if PCE comes in lower, we spoke about on this show a few weeks ago where Yellen basically said, "Hold on, don't sell all your treasuries. We are gonna cut rates." I don't think the US has much flexibility there to keep them high for too long.
Yeah, and then you mentioned something about money printing. CTO, I don't know if you're tracking this, but US versus China money supply.
Yeah. Can I just show one quick chart on the rates just before we leave it? So this is the US government 2-year bond rates, and there is this super clear resistance here, and it basically rejected there again on 2nd of May. This one isn't going to break out here in the current economic environment. I really don't think so. When it didn't break out back in March 2023, it couldn't break out here in October. It didn't break out on 1st of May. This year, it's not going to break out now. So I think exactly like Mando said, that resistance is going to hold. It's going to go lower from here. I'm almost sure looking at this chart. So for sure, we're going to get rate cuts, and that's gonna be beneficial for us into speculative markets? I think so.
Super interesting. Let's go back to this money printing. Mando, you did mention all the central banks are going to be printing like crazy. We're seeing that. It's almost like a fiat printing war right now. China are taking the lead. They have literally added, I can't remember the number, 86% of the money supply over a very recent window of time. What that is, I'm not sure. I think a year or so. US is going into printing mode, starting in earnest this week, coming with bond treasury issuance, and the Fed, or the Treasury, is buying their own bonds back, which is another sign of desperation. ECB, I don't know what they're doing. They're probably doing something very similar. How much will all of this money printing float our bags? You know the answer.
Sorry, I was muted. I think the real one to look out for here is China. They're the ones who I think will be printing the most relative to the size of the economy. They need to save a number of different issues there, mainly around the property market. They're having big boosts to the chip industry. Like, they're behind on some very key things, and they also have a huge population problem. So these aren't things that that they can just hope for growth dynamics to get out of. So China is going to be printing probably for the rest of our lifetimes. That's how I see it. I think the US and the EU, they're starting to print more. You also have to look at that. They sometimes print in like ways which are kind of off balance sheet. Like, a lot of the US printing which happened last year was to save the banking system, and it was kind of done on like off Fed loans. So you expect to see that. I still think, China will be the big addition to global liquidity over the next 5 years, in my opinion.
And we know as well they've been buying gold like crazy. What happens if they start buying Bitcoin? Would you think there's ever a scenario where that happens?
Oh, but if they're not, like, officials are, for sure. Like, for sure. China is the biggest buyer of gold right now. Retail prices for gold trade at a massive premium to regular prices.
30%.
Yeah. I'm certain that a huge amount of money is flowing from China into Bitcoin already. I don't know if they probably would never do it from like the central bank perspective. As we've spoken about before, I think they'll be one of the last movers and something like that. But I do think, you'll see a lot of domestic buying and probably even high members of society buying a ton of Bitcoin.
Yeah. So money's coming, liquidity is coming to the US. We know that as well. CTO, did you spot this one? This I thought was stunning, where Phantom, a crypto wallet, jumps like in the same week. It made it to position number 2, bypassing PayPal, and then a day later, it bypassed Cash App as the top free finance app on iOS. How do you view this as mainstreamification of crypto? Is this a big deal in your mind, where now a crypto wallet is bigger than kind of PayPal that you've used for years, and Cash App? I don't know if that's heavily used in the US or in Europe.
Of course, it is huge. It is massive. I did see it on the internet. I think I went in to check myself, but I think that these are per app store, which is kind of localized. So I couldn't really confirm it, but I saw it all over internet. And of course, this is huge. It is happening. We're having like the mainstream politicians jumping over each other to support crypto. It's the number 1 finance app. Everyone is talking about crypto again. And it's massive. It is massive. It's like, when we've talked about it for so long, I've only been here since 2017. Some have been here much longer than me, but then it's actually happening. It feels almost weird. Oh, wow, it actually happened exactly what we thought would happen, but now it's actually playing out. I think we're launching a new era, a new stage of crypto, and I think it's happening exactly now. We're getting more mainstream. It will be less of rebels. It will be more the banks that we talked about since last year already, James, that the banks going to love it now. Now the banks are all pro crypto because they have the ETF products, and we're all one big happy family now. I'm sure that, okay, here comes a prediction. I think Elizabeth Warren will back off as well. Suddenly she will say, "Did I say what I was against? No, that was totally misunderstood. I was always so positive
I was
to
just
create."
trying to protect you. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. We just needed to have proper regulation in place to protect you as investors, but I've always been pro innovation, American, innovative technology to change the world and so on. I think that will change as well. Now everyone's one big happy family, and I think we will enter a new stage of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a tweet this week that no one has done more for crypto than Elizabeth Warren, because all it did is just galvanize everyone in crypto to try and be against her. So I think it's there's something to be said about that. I do think this just shows, like, this is actually a thing on Google Play, and it's been slowly rising. It's their finance apps. But yeah, all of these wallets are going to start pushing out. Like, this is US adoption now. So, and that, again, when we said everything has a narrative, that Phantom is really the Solana wallet, although they do support Bitcoin and ETH now. But that probably speaks to meme coin season as well, just being raging at the moment. And I think that's going to keep going. Like, I just don't see a world now going into the election what throws a spanner in the works here for crypto. Like, normally you would say, like everyone always said, when Coinbase hits #1 on the App Store, that's a top signal. We're not #1 on the App Store, to be clear, for top Coinbase. I still think it's a lot lower. This is like a subset of a subset. This is the Google Play finance section, but it does show that we're starting to really heat up with users, particularly for Solana, if I'm honest.
Okay, master of meme, over to you, Mando. Solana meme coin with flips Ethereum layer 2 Arbitrum, and we've seen Pepe on fire, and Bonk is pumping. And if you were running Arbitrum, what would you think about this? Just hide your head in the sand.
Tough to be running Arbitrum. Arbitrum, they've got a great team behind them. Off-chain Labs, I think, are some of the smartest people in crypto. They're smart guys. But yeah, power of memes. Pepe entered the top 20. Really this week, that WIF is a Solana meme coin. It actually hasn't had a great couple of weeks. The real winners this week were anything ETH in terms of meme coins. So Pepe is now number 18. So it broke into the top 20. It's up again today, hit all-time high. You had Mog hit all-time high. You had Turbo hit all-time high. You had, I'm trying to think of any others. Floki, I think, came close. But anything which is ETH or ETH related absolutely soared, because for a long time in the meme coin ecosystem, they had been kind of unloved. No one had been investing in them because Solana had all the action. And then as soon as that switched, everyone wanted to get a piece of meme coin action. The other thing that really pumped was anything related to Trump. So there's 4 or 5 different coins which we hit all-time high. There's Trump, MAGA, Trump, like there's tons of different ones. But yeah, they all absolutely mooned. But yeah, look, I come into this show and I know people are like, oh, these are never going to last, but this is really taking hold. I don't know. I don't see that trend stopping. Particularly into the election, I just think, like I just said, these are very strong trends. The reason also I think the ETH meme coins really ripped was because of what I said before. There's a big push now that if ETH is a commodity, that Wall Street's going to come in and start playing around with ETH coins, and the quickest ones, or quickest route for them to like providing baskets of commodities would be things like memes. So like a meme basket or a meme index, or which people would maybe buy. If someone said to you, I'm peripheral, I think memes will be big, but I don't have time to look at them. I might buy a meme basket. And you've seen that with meme stocks. Like there's interest from Wall Street in this sort of stuff. So that they really did move. Like we're not talking about small moves here. Like Pepe is up 100%, and all the mid cap ones are up about 150 to 300%. So very, very big moves in the space of a week.
Last thing, we're going to jump into a couple of questions now. We're trying to keep this to a very strict hour for comfort for everybody late in Europe. We'll do a couple of quick questions as well. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comments. We're looking at them live. First of all, there is a top question here from Brave 1988. Brave, you can't look at the market cap of stablecoins like the market cap of Bitcoin, no? ST is $1 to $1 and Bitcoin is a multiplier of dollars, or am I wrong? No, you are definitely correct when you say that. Stablecoins, of course, are pegged to a melting ice cube like the dollar. And there's some very interesting things happening with stablecoins now, especially many stablecoin pairs around the world, like euro, Australian dollar, etc. But how do you guys view the importance of stablecoins? Obviously, it's there for liquidity, and I have never been a fan of looking at dominance because, first of all, crypto market cap in total doesn't include everything. And also, many of the tokens that are included in the CMC are liquid. But how do you view that, either one of you, the whole stablecoin world, market cap world?
Great question. So absolutely correct. The stablecoin market cap is actually the exact amount of dollars put in. So that amount that we saw there in market cap, that's exactly the amount that's been put in, and hopefully exactly the amount that can be taken out, while the market cap on the speculative coins are not. If you put in another $1 billion in Bitcoin, market cap of Bitcoin does not go up by 1 billion. It goes up by typically more, perhaps 10, 50, even 100 times more. So it's not the same. These numbers are not the same. That is absolutely correct. So they cannot be compared that way. I do think that stablecoin is one of the best innovations for this industry. And I think it has really helped the growth of the industry, that you can, in a way, park the money in even though it's sinking, but it's kind of sort of stable when trading and entering and exiting.
In markets, liquidity is everything. Mando, any quick thoughts on that?
I just think stablecoin volumes are going to go absolutely insane. Like, you don't think that all these big banks are now like licking their lips about creating their own stablecoins? Tether has a stablecoin which is 85 billion. You don't think JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, big even tech companies are going in there being like, I wouldn't mind earning 5 billion a year. They are stablecoin market cap is going to absolutely explode. Interestingly, you saw something last week, which is the US House also voted to like ban a US CBDC. So that's kind of not happening now. So yeah, you're going to see Wall Street go after this. Huge.
Yeah, it is a fascinating business model. Another quick question from HNG Loose 2. Are we going to hit 70K this stream? Typically, we get rejected. We're taking another run at it right now. We're $80 away from 70,000. What happens is it hits 70 on the nose and then falls back down again. But ETH is also looking very strong, and there's talk of maybe that hitting 4,000. And that's all happening live, ladies and gentlemen. ETH is $65 from 4,000 bucks. So that's all possible. There was another question that popped up regarding Elon Musk and his payments on X. What do we think of that? I think never fade Elon Musk. He's not a popular person, but the plan he has for X to become a global bank will take hold. They have remittance licenses, and they're thinking about 28 states in the US already. And once that happens, it will be blockchain based in some way or another. Mando, I see you nodding. Are you tracking X payments at all?
Yeah, they're just getting licensed. It's a state by state process, right? So it has been quite a long time. I think Elon thought that it'd be out to go live later this year, but there's obviously a lot of bureaucracy in getting these sort of licenses. So I think that could get pushed. He's had a big week. He's raised $6 billion for XAI, and a couple of other things. So, but this is definitely big for crypto.
Yeah, we just hit 70,000. It did happen. So Mr. Moose, it just popped. Amazing. And that 70,000, by the way, is on Binance. There is a delta between Coinbase and Binance. Is now about 150, but it was $1,250 a few days ago, which is crazy. That ARB. Any way, Mando, that we can play that ARB, we need a lot of capital and need instant rails to do it. I've thought about it. I haven't been able to cut it.
You can. I mean, that's how SBF made all this money, right? But I think the risk-free way that people are doing is this basis trade where you earn the yield. If we really do enter a bull market, a lot of hedge funds will come in, they'll buy Bitcoin spot, they'll sell futures, and you could see them making like 30-40% APR on that. So I think that would be the risk-free trade.
That's an interesting one. Actually, data is the new gold. I used to say that about 10 or 15 years ago, when there was a thing called business intelligence and how important it was for companies to mine that. CTO, do you believe that data is the new gold, especially for us in investing here?
I think that interestingly, in crypto specifically, there isn't a whole lot of data in the meaning of information. It's more a strange dynamic of ecosystem, meaning people who are passionate, and technology. But even the technology component, it's an open source culture. So a lot of the technology gets copied, but the copycats often don't get so much traction in the end. So it's really interesting. I think that it is a combination of the technology and the people, which is the new goal. It's like the community. Say that one of the most passionate communities, if the project totally changed their technology, I don't think it would matter so much to the people. Say that Vitalik comes out tomorrow and saying, I will change the whole stack now. It's going to work like this instead. We're going to call it ETH2 or ETH3 or something like that. People won't change. They will still, or same if Solana, if they change something fundamentally in the technology, I think people will still say, okay, great, we get an upgrade, and they would continue using it. And there isn't so much legacy data either, because the ecosystem participants are really fast to change and update everything and so on. So I think it's the people that is the new data, the community, which is the new data. Of course, together with technology.
Super interesting. And this is, this is from Conway Fitzgerald. Mando, I'd like your point of view on this. Sol is for micropayments, ETH is for tokenization of assets, Bitcoin for flight to safety. I agree with those narratives, but I would change the vernacular a little bit to consumer chain. Sol is clearly the consumer chain right now. ETH, BlackRock's tokenizer, and Bitcoin is just, it's your money market account it's your life raft. What would you say the three big narratives of crypto are? How would you phrase them, Mando?
Those are strong narratives, which I think they can push for. ETH, the only one that's really changed here is ETH, right? Like, I think people felt as though if it wasn't called a commodity, it would probably lose ground to Solana. Everything could easily get securitized on Solana. It now has this window to really push that. It really has that window, and we'll see. I think we're also going to see in the next weeks, maybe even days, someone apply for a Sol futures ETF. That basically would set the clock on a Sol spot ETF, and then I think we'll see what can be built in the next 18 months.
Yeah, did you guys see the news? Actually, this came from Wilson. A thing called GUM, the dupe aggregator for assets, a global asset aggregator, which is their RWA play. Either of you, does that have any legs? It seems fascinating in concept, but can they pull it off? If they can pull it off, it'll be cross-chain, cross-asset, multi-asset, global, frictionless tokenization at a fraction of a cent. It sounds like a unicorn's dream.
Of course they can do it.
Or Mando, yeah?
Yeah, of course they can do it. I think they can easily do it. But it's being done mainly with firms in Asia. Like, to do that in the US is difficult, basically. So they've gone down that route. I think Jupiter is based in Singapore, right? So, and the majority of the other firms that I mentioned were non-US. So I think they're going to do securitization, but ETH now can probably securitize in the US, which is where a lot of money is.
Yeah, and this actually, you triggered a question in my mind for both of you. CTO, for you first. We have this world where, okay, China's printing a ton of money. China has the largest population, or joint largest population with India. They're killing everybody now. Europe and North America are going very protectionist, i.e., levies on, or tariffs on assets, imports, and now it's become a huge issue. First of all, I don't like protectionism because it weakens the existing players. Second of all, are we overly concerned about markets like the US and Europe, or will they shrivel away over time? And will Asia and India be where all the action happens anyway? Like you talked about tokenization. Yeah, that's an Asian thing for Sol. So, CTO, you first. It'll be kind of the final question, then we wrap. But this is This is an interesting global dynamic of where the world is going. And I like to play where the world is going to be, not where it is today. CTO, your thoughts?
The trend, I'm into trends, right? And the trend is crystal clear. Asia is rising. It's been rising for a long time. It was rising yesterday. It's rising today. It will rise tomorrow. If anyone hasn't recently traveled around a little bit in Asia, you should, buy a ticket and do that, everyone watching. And you will realize that it wasn't really like you thought, or it wasn't really like it was 10 or even 5 years ago. There is an enormous growth, young, ambitious people, and they're gaining grounds on the world stage. And these are, of course, slow changes. Europe, North America had an enormous legacy advantage here, and that takes long time to erode. But if we look at the trend is clear. We have gotten a little bit slow, a little bit lazy, a little bit comfortable in the old world, and the new world, countries like El Salvador, countries like in Asia, they are running faster at this point, and they will keep gaining grounds as long as the current situation remains. So that is, I think Asia will get more and more important. Same with South America. I think they will leverage this new technology. They will benefit from the whole era digitalis situation, that before you only competed with a guy who's like living in commute distance from the office. Now you're competing with everyone in the world because everyone working remote. And this whole kind of society shift will have a big impact. So if someone has gotten like a little bit comfortable, a little bit lazy, feel they have a secure job, no need to venture out into crazy things like crypto or investing or something, I think you're wrong. I think it's not safe. I think you should, sail your own ship, take control of your own future. There is no better opportunity than technology and crypto in the world right now, I think.
Yep, very true. And agrees with you. And
I have one question before, if
Yeah,
I may ask. Do
please.
you guys think that Larry Fink knew this when he was on that interview? Was it 2 months ago? And he said Ethereum specifically. He didn't mean to say
Absolutely.
that. He could have said like blockchains or something like that.
The
What do you
US government, the Fed, and the Treasury, they all work for Larry Fink. There was an interesting set of phone records, and it was the number of calls that Larry Fink made in one day to Jerome Powell. 3 calls in one day. And they compared that to the number of calls from like Janet Yellen, like one a month or something. So literally, they're the Finkster, as we call him, he controls everything. He's the oil that runs the money machine globally. They don't do anything without his blessing first. Yes, for people who used to joke, it's like, oh, Gary Gensler is in control, and Gary Gensler says this is security. None of that matters. All right. If the Finkster takes out his magic wand and goes zap, Gary Gensler, done. And we saw that happen last week. All right. Politics, money, follow the money. Money rules the world. Mando, any thoughts on that? Or is that too strong a statement?
No, you said it right. You said it right.
Yeah.
He's incredibly powerful. And I think he's only he probably did have an inkling that was going to get through. The success rate for BlackRock, something like 580 to 1 rejection on ETF. So he probably knew. But I would say, like we said, the price action there probably tells you that very, very, very few people did know.
Yeah, it definitely was a surprise. Well, that's a wrap, everybody. We broke through 70K. We didn't get rejected from it, which was the expectation. Things are looking really strong. We heard precious metals are up. Some stocks in Europe are up. Overall, it's a good Monday. Any final thoughts from yourself, Mando, or CTO?
So much higher. We are going so much higher. I'm so bullish after the last week. Like, you can be bullish on Sol, you can be bullish on ETH, you can be bullish on Bitcoin. I really, really think crypto is looking so healthy now. And I just don't see how it gets derailed for the next few months.
They're going to call you Dr. Hopium now. After saying that, CTO, do you agree with that?
What an absolute benefit and joy it is to be studying this field and kind of seeing all this play out. I enjoy this so much. I want to say thank you for everyone who's been here, us rambling over the years. And suddenly we're here at the point of complete mainstream adoption. It is incredible, actually.
Yeah. Can you pull up the Bitcoin chart real time live? Zoom into the 1 minute chart or 5 minutes? Yeah.
Let's step it down here. We see how the DCA show has impacted the price. So what is it people say here? So yeah, looking great on every time frame. Bitcoin is up on, you pick any time frame and it's going to be up.
Yeah, awesome. I want to thank everybody. Also, thank you all to your respective channels. People like this. They like to be able to go to their go-to to get their stuff. We've got Mando on X, CTO Larson on the CTO Larson channel, me on my channel. And thank you both, gentlemen. Next week, Mando, if I'm not mistaken, you're the moderator next week, correct?
I am, yeah. I'm moderating. So
bringing Mando Minutes live.
Only going to be memes. It's only going to be memes.
Meme show. We're gonna go organ long on Pepe. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, CTO. Thank you, Mando. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Enjoy the week. And for those as well in the UK on holiday, enjoy the holiday. And for those in the US, enjoy the Memorial Day. And a shout out to all the veterans. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, great week. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.